So nice.
Hi, and welcome to this episode of John's Motorcycle Rescue and Review. Today I am with Honda's 1998 through 2001 VFR800 Interceptor. In this review video, I'm going to be talking about the specs of the bike. I'll talk a little bit about the history of the bike, and in a minute here, I'm going to gear up and we'll take this bike out on the road to see how it drives. Honda introduced the VF750 in 1983. And it was just a world beater at the time. It introduced a liquid-cooled V4 motor, and it had 4 valves per cylinder. It was used in production racing. It was a very successful design. While the original VF750 was more of a dedicated sport bike, over the years the VFR became more of a street-oriented sport bike. It was not a super sport. In 1998, Honda introduced this generation of VFR, and they bumped the displacement up to 782 cc's. They also added fuel injection to the motor. Some of the unique features about the VFR: this has gear-driven cams instead of a timing chain, and it gives the bike a very unique sound, a very cool sound to it. Even though it's liquid-cooled, it does not have a radiator in front of the motor. Instead, it has radiators on either side of the motor, and that allowed Honda to shift the weight and the motor in the bike forward. And it helps with the weight balance on the bike. It helps with the handling on the bike. This bike features a 6-speed transmission with chain final drive. Another unique feature on the VFR is the single-sided swing arm, and it uses the engine as the pivot for the swing arm. The frame on the VFR is an aluminum frame. It uses the engine as a stressed member. The VFR features conventional forks up front, and they have spring preload adjustment on those. Up back, it features a single shock that has both spring preload and rebound damping adjustment. The front and rear travel on the bike is 4.7 inches of suspension travel. The VFR has big dual disc brakes up front, and those have 3 piston calipers on each side. And it also has a big disc brake out back with a 3 piston caliper. And this bike features linked brakes, and that was kind of a unique feature on the Hondas. And the way that it works, when I apply the front brake, it activates 2 pistons on each of the calipers in the front, and it operates the single piston in the middle on the back caliper. Operating the foot brake activates 1 piston each on the front calipers and 2 pistons on the rear caliper. Out on the road, the linked brakes are almost invisible. It's not something that you notice right away, but it has very effective braking and very nice braking. The fuel tank on the VFR is a 5.5 gallon fuel tank, and that gives right around 190 miles till reserve. The VFR weighed 517 pounds full of fuel. Performance-wise, the VFR made 95 horsepower at the rear wheel at 10,500 RPM. It makes 54 foot-pounds of torque at 8,500 RPM. In stock form, the VFR ran an 11-second quarter mile at 122 miles an hour, and it had a top speed of 150 miles an hour. All right, enough talk. What does the VFR like to ride? I'm going to gear up. I'll bring the camera along. Let's find out together. Let's ride.
I'm currently riding Honda's 1998 VFR800. And what a glorious machine. This has to be one of the best sounding motorcycles ever produced. Honda's VFR 750 and 800 have won Cycle World's 10 Best more than 10 different times, and it's just an incredible street bike. This bike has been modified with some creature comforts such as the Healy bars. It's running a Corbin seat on it. And so it elevates what was already a comfortable bike into a bike that is just fantastically comfortable. It has a new windscreen on it that allows for better wind protection. This bike is incredibly smooth. The V4 power plant just has very linear power. There are no spikes in the power band. It just pulls cleanly from idle to redline. And because this isn't a leader bike, it's very friendly in the mid-range. And then there's that beautiful V4 sound. It's a cold day in Pennsylvania. There's gravel on the roads, so I'm not going to be flat out here, but I'm just riding this bike on some back roads and enjoying it. It has a slick shifting 6-speed transmission, shifts very nicely. On a cool day like today, it's nice to have some of the engine heat coming off of the frame and the rear cylinder, and that's about where my knees are. And so even on a colder day like this, I can enjoy some extended riding time. It's not so friendly on a hot day above 80 degrees. Oh yeah. Fantastic. The brakes on this are very nice. It does have the linked brakes, but that's pretty transparent when you're riding it. This bike is running a Stain Tune exhaust, so it's got some performance upgrades as well. It's also got some suspension work done to it, and it's very tight. I'm really surprised at how hard this thing pulls as you go up through the rev range, and it honestly is probably the strongest feeling VFR800 I've ridden, and I've ridden every generation of VFR800. Power really comes on above 6,000 RPM. The handling is quite intuitive. It's very easy to kind of figure out what the bike is doing. The chassis is very communicative. And I'm getting a little bit of a rumble through the handlebars, but it's not annoying. It's just a nice V4 vibration. It's not as high frequency as like an inline 4. I owned a 97 VFR 750 previously, and I had a terrible time being good on it because of how good the engine sounds and how communicative the chassis is. It is just a very easy bike to go fast on. Oftentimes the Japanese bikes get a little bit of flack because they lack some character, and the Honda bikes are prone to that just as much as any other brand. But the nice thing about the VFR is that it has that engine that is so soulful and really has such nice character to it, and it has such an exotic sound to it that is kind of the best of both worlds. It's very practical, it's everyday comfortable, but it's also kind of sexy to ride and to just enjoy that sound and the feel of that smooth motor. When the original VFR came out in 1983, it was really a revelation. It was an incredible performer. It was successfully raced by some very famous racers. This later iteration of the VFR is more refined. It's more of a street bike. It is no longer a super sport machine. But it is still a fantastic motorcycle. Oh yeah. I can tell if I owned another one of these today that I would have the exact same problem that I had with my first one, and that is I just can't be good on these things. It's too fun, it's too easy to ride it quickly as such a capable machine, and I just end up riding faster than I should. But man, it's a wonderful feeling to be on this V4 super bike from Honda.
Man, what a lot of fun. This VFR is so capable, so confidence inspiring, so smooth, so soulful in the way that it sounds. It has great engine performance, great brakes, and really nice styling. It's just such a pretty machine. It's such a nice sounding machine. Every time I ride one of these, it's very easy to see why this bike won the 10 Best Award as many times as it did. They're just a phenomenal machine. My only complaint when I ride them, I wouldn't mind it being a 1000cc bike, but Honda has that area covered with the CBR 1000, and so this is just a great all-around sport bike. And you could make an argument, if you only had one bike in the garage, this would be a fantastic one to have. It can do anything from touring to track days, and any type of riding you want to do, it will do it comfortably and competently. All right, I hope you found this video entertaining and informative, and until next time, enjoy the ride.